Hi guys, it's Lily. Welcome back to the third installment in my series on the pros and cons of different planning systems. So up today is spiral planners. So just a little bit of my history with spiral planners. My first ever planner was a spiral planner. In fact, it was this very planner, which is called the Jewish Calendar. I first started using this planner in, I think, maybe 1998 or 9. And I used it for probably 2 years, and it was just the same format. This is just I did a review on this planner a couple of months ago. It's a calendar it's a planner that has a week on one page, and then it has the dates on the Jewish calendar as well as the Gregorian calendar. So yeah, I used this for 2 years, and then I actually used another spiral bound planner directly after that. When I started university, I got given another Jewish planner, funnily enough. When I joined the University Jewish Society, they gave out a free planner as a kind of, like joining present. And so I used that, I believe, for the next 3 years. And then after that, I used a Hebrew planner, which I've mentioned a few times. And that kind of varied. It was the same company, but sometimes, like some years it was in a spiral version and sometimes it was book bound. So I'd say over the years I've used probably maybe seven years on and off I've used a spiral planner. But in those days I didn't really use them in the way that we planner addicts, I think, would use them, as in I didn't take full advantage of all of the different features. I didn't really think about it. A planner to me in those days was just totally utilitarian, totally functional. I didn't put any thought into the aesthetics, which seems like a shame because, as I've mentioned, I've always loved stationery, so I don't know why I didn't think of it like that. And in the modern era, since I've really got into planners, when I first saw spiral planners on YouTube, like Erin Condren and Plum Paper Planner, and then later Inkwell Press came out and Lime Life, and so I think over the last year or so, I've seen a lot of spiral planners on YouTube, and none of them ever appealed to me. So, like I said, when I first used a spiral planner, I used it just because it had the dates and I needed to write things down, but I really didn't think about whether I liked how it looked or not, if you see what I mean. Whereas after I got into planners and, started watching videos on all different types of planners, the spiral planners never spoke to me. They never appealed to me. And I think the reason is that I associate them with office supplies, like with kind of, cheap wire-bound notebooks. And, kind of looking back on the spiral planners that I'd used, I sort of felt that way about them. Like I never would have wanted to go back to having another spiral planner. The sorts of notebooks that I think throughout sort of all of university, I used, the spiral bound notebooks with like perforated pages, and you can tear out the pages and they're hole punched. Just the really basic ones that you get in an office supply shop, A4 size, for taking notes. And that's what I associate them with. So despite the fact that there are some spiral bound planners that are, that are really highly regarded, that people love and see as beautiful, like Inkwell Press, that has the really nice hardbound covers. Just the spiral, there's something about the aesthetics of the spiral that has just never appealed to me. I don't know why. It's totally a personal thing. It's not like I have any ideological opposition to them. But I decided to give spiral planners another go, partly because I was sort of curious. Just, I felt like I want to try out all the different planner systems now that I'm kind of totally into planners and see what I think of them. And also because I was sort of nostalgic. I started thinking about this Jewish calendar, which had been my first planner that I'd ever had all those years ago. And I thought, I wonder if they still make that and what it looks like now. So I checked on Amazon, and lo and behold, it's still going years later. Because, I hadn't used that for about 15 years probably. And it was still spiral bound, which was actually kind of a disappointment to me because the picture on Amazon made it look like it was book bound. It didn't have the spiral showing in the picture. And I got really excited thinking, they've changed it to book bound. Perfect. And then it turned out that it was actually spiral bound, as it always had been. So I was like, okay, fine. So I thought that since I used this planner for a couple of months as a home planner, I thought that it would be good. I could give you my sort of new feelings on spiral planners since I've used it recently. So there are some pros. The first pro is, I think, something that everybody always associates with spiral planners, and that is the fact that you can fold them over on themselves to write with. And I do think that that is a really nice feature. I discovered recently that you can actually do that with the Hobonichi Cousin if it's in the sack cover, because the sack is so flexible that it can bend back on itself. And I was really excited to be able to do that, because I think through YouTube, I've been hearing so much about, like people who say, and I love the fact that this can fold over on itself. And that's never a feature that would have occurred to me before. It's never something that I felt the desire to do. I don't remember whether I did that when I had this planner originally. I probably did. It makes sense. But I never remember thinking, oh, I'm so happy that this can fold over on itself. But now, since that feature has been pointed out to me more recently, I'm like, oh, it's very nice that you can fold this over on itself. So I think that definitely is a pro. Another pro that I really, really like about spiral planners is that you can just tear up pages with no trace. And I did this. I kind of regret it now, but when I was using this as a home planner, it was full of stickers. And when I decided not to use it as a home planner anymore and just to use it as a reference guide for the Jewish calendar, for the Jewish holidays, which is how I'm using it now, just something that I check, to see what day, let's say Tu B'Shvat, which is the next holiday, what day Tu B'Shvat is. I was kind of bothered by the fact that it had like 2 months worth of stickers in it and that it had been used as a home planner. I don't know why. I kind of wanted it to be nice and sleek and as if I just bought it for the purpose of using it as a reference calendar. So I tore out all of the pages with the where I'd been using it as a planner. This is like the last week, and you can see just a very faint shadow of what it was like. It was really like covered in stickers. But I think it's nice that you can do that. Another thing that I did when I first got this planner is this started in September, which is when the Jewish year starts, but I only ordered it in November. So there were like 2 months that had already gone by. And that kind of bothered me because it was like they were mocking me, saying, why didn't you get me when I first came out? You could have been using me and covering me with stickers. And so I just tore those pages out, and you'd never suspect. And because the binding can kind of take it, you don't really notice. It's not like the planner is somehow disproportionately small in comparison to the binding, if that makes sense. So that's another thing that I like about them, which you can't do with a bound planner, obviously. So, if you mess up a page in a bound planner, or you buy it late and you have a bunch of blank pages, you can't just tear it out. So I think that is a nice feature of the spiral planners. Another nice feature, which was kind of a surprise to me because I hadn't been expecting this, and I certainly didn't do anything like this when I first had this planner years ago, is that you can actually customize them quite a bit. So you can't customize them to the same degree as you can a ring-bound planner, obviously, but you can do a lot of things that I think I certainly wasn't expecting, and I kind of feel like probably a lot of other people that aren't into spiral planners wouldn't expect either. So, for example, you can put in a bookmark. So I made this bookmark, which I was very proud of because I'm not extremely crafty, so this was quite an achievement. And you can like kind of pop it in and out of the spiral just as you would like a Filofax ruler. So it's a bit more fiddly because there's so many spirals. But you can have a movable bookmark, which is really nice, and again something that you can't really do with a bound planner. Obviously there are other ways to have movable bookmarks with a bound planner, but you can't slot it in and out. Likewise, you can make a dashboard. So this was a Happy Scrappy dashboard that was intended for an A5 ring planner, and I just like punched it. It was quite a project. It takes a while punching all of those holes, and then you cut slits, and then you can take that in and out. This I just leave in here because it's sort of a production to take it out, and I don't really have any reason to. But I really like the fact that you could put things like this in and, sort of make it a bit more your own. And then you can also put in anything else that would go into a ring planner, like a pocket. So this came from something else, and I just put some washi tape over the side, again punched holes in it, put it in with slits, and then I had a pocket for stickers, and then the same with this dashboard. So that's really quite a bit of customization, considering that this is a planner that's, you know, kind of bound and has everything together. And I think it's nice that you can do that and that it's relatively easy. The same way, I didn't ever do this, but you could also put in extra pages if you wanted to. So if you got pages that were the right size, and this planner happens to be a bit of an awkward size, it's like slightly bigger than A5, but if you had an A5 spiral planner and you could easily get pages, you just punch them, slit them, put them in, and you've got an extra page. So I think that's quite a nice feature. And I was really enjoying that when I was using this. I was really getting into customizing it and putting all of these different, dashboards and pockets and things in, just because it was quite satisfying to be able to do that with a planner that I hadn't expected to be able to customize like that. Another nice thing about them is that they are a unity like bound planners. And, you know, as you know, I really love the fact that bound planners are like books and that everything is together and that you don't just have a bunch of loose pages, which is one of my main issues with ring bound planners. And spiral planners, I kind of feel like, are not quite the same thing, because in the back of your mind, you always know that you could just tear out the pages. But nevertheless, they are together. They're bound in a system that you can't just take them out so easily. They're not loose leaf, I guess is what I mean. So at the end of the year, you could take this and just put it on the shelf and archive it, which is one of the things that I like about bound planners, and this has that same feature. Another thing that I like about them is that you can very easily put them in notebook covers. So I had this in a couple of different covers. Again, because it was kind of an odd size, I couldn't put it in something like a Filofax Flex, which I really wanted to, but I ended up putting it in a D-ringed A5 domino, which just about fit it. Or it did fit. I just had to cut down the back cover a bit. But you can kind of make them, I guess, sort of look more like either a ring bound planner, or, you know, you could put them in a traveler's notebook style cover. So you have a lot of possibilities to make them look any way that you want from the outside, which for me was an advantage because that hid the spiral, and I don't like the spiral. I don't know why, I just don't. But so that was something else I like about them, is that like bound planners, you can put them inside different notebook covers and give them a completely different look. Another thing that I like about them is that it's really easy to put charms on them. So I've had this keychain, which has a Hebrew blessing on it. And I had this on a ring bound planner. And something that I kind of miss with bound planners is that it's not really easy to do that unless there's a bookmark that you can attach them to, but they're not really set up for it in the same way. So that was something that I kind of got into with ring planners. And you can do it with the spiral really easily. So you, ta-da, and there the charm is. So that's something else that I like about them. Another thing that I really like is that they're very easy if you're left-handed. And not only if you're left-handed, I just say that because I'm left-handed, so it's the thing that comes to mind. But I think anyone, whether left-handed or right-handed, can appreciate this. The fact that you can very easily write on either side of the page, like right up to the edge, because the spiral doesn't take up much room. Obviously, it depends on the spiral. So I've seen some of the new Erin Condrens, for example, that have a really big coil, and I guess that could get in the way of writing. But if you have a smaller spiral like this is almost like kind of flat with the page. You can see the spiral hardly sticks out at all. And so that means that I can write on either side of the page without any problem. And I think that that's a very nice feature, certainly compared to ring planners, which is, I think, one of their annoyances as well, is that, you know, you can run into this issue where it's inconvenient to write on the rings, and then you have to take the pages out, which isn't always convenient, especially like, you know, if you're out and you just want to write something down quickly. It's not nice to have to take the pages out or else have to kind of put up with writing like this. So with the spiral planner, you don't have that issue at all. Another thing that I like about it, and this is very subjective, so I think that there will probably be just as many people or even more that don't like this feature. So for them it would be a con, but for me it's a pro, is the fact that the order of the pages is set like in a bound planner, a book bound planner. So I quite like that. I like sort of knowing that the whole diary is mapped out for me and that I know where to find everything. Of course, the downside of that is that you can't customize things. So, you know, the great advantage of a ring bound planner is that if you decide that you want to have a section with lists, you can have a section with lists. If you decide that you want to have it before your diary pages, your calendar pages, you can move it and put it at the front. Whereas with a spiral bound planner, you get what they decide to give you. And if all they decide to give you is calendar pages, that's what you have. And you can't really do much about it unless, of course, as I said, you can like kind of tip in pages, you can punch pages and put them in. But it's not really the same as a ring bound planner. So I know that there are people who would find that a disadvantage, but I quite like it. It's very comforting somehow to know that like it's set and this is what I have and I know where to find everything. So I like that, but I can understand how it could be a disadvantage as well. So those are the pros. Now moving on to the cons. The first thing, as I've already mentioned, is I don't know why, but I just don't like the look of the spiral. I mean, I think the reason is, as I've said, it's because it somehow reminds me of like, cheap notebooks that I would use for things that just, kind of just stuff that I had to get written down. Like it doesn't feel elegant to me. It just somehow there's something about it that reminds me of like, cheap office supplies. And I have to say that I'm being unfair because really the only spiral bound planners that I've ever had experience with are this one and then the other ones that I mentioned, the Hebrew calendars. So I've never used like say the Inkwell Press, which I think looks really nice, and I know everyone says that it's excellent quality, so I don't mean to say that like all spiral bound planners look cheap. I don't mean to say that at all. There's just something about the spiral. Another thing is I think that over the years in sort of in the university environment, I have photocopied a lot of like books and articles that are out of print and I couldn't get any other way from like interlibrary loan and stuff, and I would always take them, I still do, would like take them to get them bound at a like the sort of university copy shop, and they do wire binding. And so I just associate it with like, things like obviously I'd rather have a real copy of the book, but if it's, like a book that's impossible to get and I have this photocopy and it's wire bound, it's like somehow feels to me like kind of like my second best choice. Like it's not as nice as the bound option that I would rather have. And that's just how these are. It's like how my brain perceives them, and it's not their fault at all. It's totally my fault just because I associate them with other things that I don't like, if you see what I mean, aesthetically. So that's the first con, which is just specific to me. Another thing which is sort of more of an objective issue is that the spirals can like bend and get caught on things, and I think again this depends to some degree on the quality of the spiral, because like I know people say that the Erin Condren spiral, for example, is really, really durable and it doesn't bend. But I've seen videos of other planners that have good quality spirals where they can sometimes get a bit bent as well. So I think it just is something that goes with the territory, unless it's like, bulletproof spiral, they can bend and catch on things. So I've had this catch on, because this is the like wire binding, so it has this like kind of pointy thing at the top. You can see that, so sometimes that will catch on things, and that's just a design feature. So I don't really like that. Another thing is, again, this is specific to wire binding. So something like Erin Condren or Limelife that have the like single coil don't have this issue. But with wire binding, the pages can come out. And again, I don't know if this is just a quality issue. Like, I don't know if anyone has ever experienced this with something like Inkwell Press, which has, the hardback covers. But with this planner, it definitely happens because there's a gap. and you could like pull these two halves of the spiral apart. Sometimes you can get pages coming out, or like, you know, part of the page comes out, and that drives me crazy. I hate it. And I've had this with photocopied books as well, with wire binding. Like the number of times that I've had to like kind of sit and painstakingly put page after page back in through each individual spiral is like, drives me crazy. So I really don't like that. And in fact, I don't like it to such an extent that I sewed this. So I just took some cotton thread and like kind of wove it in between each spiral, each half of the spiral, so that it can't come out. So this is now like kind of completely locked in, and the pages can never come free, which is very pleasing to me. So there is a hack for that, but it's just a feature that I don't really like, you know, having to worry about. Another thing is, as I've said, that unlike a ring-bound planner, but like a book-bound planner, you can't really rearrange the pages. So I said that this was a pro for me, but it can also be a con, because, you know, if I'm thinking in this series of comparing all of the different planner systems to each other, the advantage that a ring-bound planner has is that you can do whatever you want with the order, whereas a bound planner and a spiral planner are just kind of like you're pretty limited, in that, like, for example, if you decided that you didn't want to carry all this with you for some reason and you wanted to take out the rest of the year and then put it back in later, obviously you can't do that. I think that they're kind of designed so that you don't feel like you need to do that. I'm not sure what the difference is. I think it's quite interesting where with ring-bound planners, it's very common for people to say only have 3 months worth of calendar inserts. Whereas if you have a spiral planner or a bound planner, I've never heard anyone say like, oh, I wish I could take out half the year. Maybe some people do, but it's just a fact of life that you have to live with it. I assume it's because usually if you have a ring-bound planner, you'll end up having a lot of other sections that take up space, whereas you can't really do that as easily with one of these. You know, you couldn't add in like another chunk this big. I mean, even if you technically could punch the pages and put them in, it would be too unwieldy. So it's just not, it's not designed to work that way. Whereas a ring-bound planner is kind of more designed to be your like kind of catch-all. You can have 10 different sections, you know, one with lists, one for household, one for budget, whereas this is just designed to be a scheduler. But yeah, you can't rearrange pages, and you can't take pages out and then put them back in. So for me, they somehow feel like they're almost like the worst of both worlds. So what I like about the bound planner, like I like the way they look. I like that they look like a book. They feel very elegant to me. I know that this is just my personal perception, but I just like the look of bound planners. Whereas with ring bound planners, I've never liked the look of the rings, you know, on the inside, because obviously you can't see the rings on the outside, so that's fine. I don't really like the look of the rings, but it has the advantage of being able to switch things around, you know, as often as you want, however you want. And this somehow feels like it's kind of got the inflexibility of the bound planner combined with the aesthetic issue of like kind of a ringy sort of looking thing going on. And somehow it just, the way that it kind of goes together just doesn't work for me. So I would like it if it looked like a book, and I would like it if it was really customizable and flexible, but it's like kind of stuck in the middle, I feel like. And it does have some good features, which I've mentioned. So it's not like I you know, completely despise them and I think that they are worthless, but it's just somehow the good features that it has for me don't outweigh the issues that I have with them. But I know that some people really, really love them and consider them to be the best of both worlds. So like, for example, May Bad, who has a great channel, she does lots of planner stuff. I'll link her channel down below. Spiral planners are her favorite type of planner. And it was interesting because when I first heard her say that, I was so surprised because it had never occurred to me that spiral planners would be anyone's first choice. And it was so interesting because I love hearing all about planner psychology and the reasons that different people like different types of planners. And I think that that's really, really cool, is that it can make you think about a planner in a way that you never would have thought about. And so, you know, she was saying all the reasons that she likes them. She's like, they're customizable, you can add things in, they lay flat. And she has all these reasons, which are like totally convincing. And I know that like there are a lot of other people who feel that way as well. So I don't at all mean to say anything bad about them. This has just been my personal experience with them. Somehow there's something about them that doesn't work for me. And it's mostly because of the aesthetic and the way that the spiral is. So yeah, it's just really just a matter of opinion, I feel like. It's not like there's anything wrong with them, but I've decided for me, just because of this experience using this planner, I really loved it. I liked the layout. I liked the paper quality of this particular planner. I liked everything about it. I liked the fact that it had the Jewish calendar. I liked the font. The week on one page worked really well as a home planner. It was enough space. I loved everything about it except the spiral. And I thought, like, don't be ridiculous. Like, this is a great planner. And James wanted to use it because this was like our joint planner. And he was like, I'm so happy with this. Let's just keep this for the rest of the year. And I was like, okay. Yeah, we'll keep it for the rest of the year. But I really don't like that spiral. And I kept telling myself, you're being ridiculous. Like, forget about the spiral. It's a great planner. Just kind of commit to using it. But I just couldn't get over the spiral. And that was why we eventually switched it out. And now we're using paper blanks instead. Bound planner, which I love. And I never had that feeling about the paper blanks planner. I'm totally happy and committed and want to use it for the rest of the year. So, like, I'm telling you this because the fact that this had a spiral was somehow so important that it outweighed all of the other reasons that I liked this planner, and in the end just made it so that I didn't want to use it. Even though it was inside a notebook cover and then it was inside a domino, it just bugged me. And it's so weird. I don't understand it. Tell me if any of you have had the same experience with spirals, because it's like, it must be some kind of bizarre psychological spiral aversion. I don't know. But yeah, that, like, I kind of feel like it's a deal breaker. I didn't mention it in my deal breaker video, but it's definitely a deal breaker for me, which makes me sad because, like, this is an awesome planner and I love it, but the spiral, I can't handle the spiral. And whenever I see any other spiral bound planner on YouTube, even like Inkwell Press, which I think looks really, really nice, and I like the insides, and like I like the design, I just know that I wouldn't be happy with the spiral. So I'm glad that I tested it out and came to that conclusion, because now I don't have to think about it anymore. But it's very, very strange, because it's not like I have any real kind of practical issues like I do with ring bound planners about why I don't like them as much. It's somehow just the aesthetic of the spiral. So I think that like kind of from now on, I probably can only see myself using a spiral planner for reference like this, basically just because this is the only way to get the Jewish holidays without a wall calendar. And I've decided that I have so many planners that I don't really need to have a wall calendar. I'd rather have a planner and just kind of like keep it on the shelf for reference. So yes, that is my take on spiral planners. I will continue the series with traveler's notebooks and disc bound planners. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and that if you like spiral planners, that you don't hold it against me that I have this strange aversion to them. So I will be back again soon for another video. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.